It's Friday. It's February 10th, 2023. I was watching CBS this morning. There's the Super Bowl coming on. Now, first thing this morning, I watched My Three Sons in a black and white episode called The Elopement, S1E13. Original air date was 12/21/1960. And in this episode, Steve thinks Mike and the girl next door are planning to elope. And then Robbie searches for historic clocks. And then it goes into this Super Bowl, which is the Roman numeral 50. So it's the L. And then it's VII, which is the Roman numeral for 7. So it's 57. So I'm watching that. And there's this, the way that they're presenting it is that they've broken the color barrier. They're dominated by dark-skinned people now. And they're just, now there's 2 quarterbacks. They're saying about their accomplishments that they used to say because of mental capacity. I heard somebody mention brain, and I'm like, now if those are national security words for like King George, and I'm just like, again, like, is it King George the Sixth? Is that an acceptable name? I don't really know anything about it. On this My Three Sons, they mentioned something about a Princess Margaret. I don't know who that is. I looked it up on YouTube. I looked it up on Google as a reference, but until I had the name Margaret, I didn't know the association. But I still don't know what the association is. I just had a photo. So that's concerning, that in my entire life frame, I've never even heard these names. I've never even heard of these people. I've never had, like, in a bigger branch of tree of security, what's going on here in something called a New York, which I don't even know where that goes back to, because again, whatever, in how I've been in a series of rooms while these things are going on. Then I asked my sons said there's something called an AFC and an NFC. So it's the American Football Conference and the National Football Conference. And I am thinking, how does that relate? Because again, I am a star that gave birth to a symmetrical star. It is a unique characteristic and trait. They label it as a cosmic mother in some historical references, in like an ancient alien type of a way, since I haven't been taught that here. But when I sit and I rebuild the universe and the solar system from scratch, being one solar system, one Earth, and then building time into that equation of reality and actuality, being myself and my son, and knowing that my son arrived on a very specific moment in time, the high specificity that relates back to the numbers of players on a field in a very specific category of sport. I don't know what it relates to necessarily. I have an idea but I don't know how it's been acted upon that's forced me into this dangerous, it almost looks like black magic. So I know it has to be a high calibration of tree trimming or whatever. I don't know the words that they use. Um, so for my protection and safety. So I'm thinking of and looking at this through a scope of, it's not like I'm living through this time period and I'm going to die and it's going to be whatever it was. I still have an eye on the future because of the special relationship in hierarchy of stars to make sure that my area is performing and participating in a manner that others participating in whatever they participate in are safe in their outer whatever, and the inner is safe in the inner whatever, and somebody's keeping an eye. I heard the other day somebody said the night watch or the morning watch, and I'm like, I'm guardian watch. I mean, I have a, anyhow. So um so I'm keeping an eye on how they're explaining this, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, so now there's two black quarterbacks, which was never allowed before. I don't know what Roger Goodell is doing. He's apparently like the person in charge of this disaster that's unfolding in front of my eyes. And he allowed two black quarterbacks. I'm like, now, if that's national strategy, why would you be teaching national strategy to non national members? That's my first question. That seems to be putting my son in the future and now, and myself now, at risk from a very forceful and powerful group that participates somewhere in North America and has some national tie and some American ties. So that's my first, like, I'm concerned as a clockmaker and a star maker. Second of all, there's been amongst in New York that I've seen. I haven't followed it actively, like in a like I don't know the names of the players. I know the team names, like the umbrella names, because again, I don't want to get picky on and target anyone in specificity, but there is a large changeover from the 19 like from my parents' day and age to my day and age with the amount of players and the ethnicity, which is concerning. So I'm not clear 100% on, I see these major changes. They look like a very large national security concern for myself, my safety, and the safety of my son. And then there's nobody really to bring that up with. Interestingly enough, they have these two quarterback brothers, I'm sorry, two player brothers in a team position that I don't really know the name of. Again, I don't really know the rules of football. I just know the name of the umbrella sport. So, they have this, and one of the brothers looks very much like when I was in Starbucks right before the pandemic. There was this visitor that just arrived. He had a very specific code name. I'm not going to pronounce it. Was in my phone. I know who he was. Around the same time that JC28 showed up, TL showed up. These are my other code names for people that just showed up that were strangers but arrived. Just like at one point, Thomas Jefferson, code name he gave me, arrived and we went out on whatever to Port Jefferson. However, so there's this PB showed up. I mean, he knows what code name he used. he looks a lot like either the singer from New Year's Eve Nashville, but then he kind of looks like this football player called Jason Kelsey. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. But I don't know the music industry and I don't know the sports industry. And they kind of, sort of, but not really um, look alike. But then I had this guy and he wanted to ride on the LIRR with me and then the subway. So I thought that was really interesting. He had some kind of, I don't know, anxiety attack, I suppose. So he said. So I just stayed with him. And then that was our entire evening. We went into the city, but I don't know anything in the city. And then he had friends. He wanted to call his friends, but then that didn't work out. And so then we just rode the LIR and the subway back. So that happened once. Um, and then he showed up a while back, and then he showed up a little while after, and he called me his guardian angel for that night, which I thought was really sweet and really nice. And then I haven't heard or seen from him since. I think he had one follow up phone call. He called me, but that was really it. So anyhow, so that was really interesting because again, could have been like whatever. I mean, there's people that look like other people, and when you only run into them a few times, it's kind of like, do I know you? Like you kind of look familiar, but I'm not sure. Um, and then code names being whatever code names are, and like I have no way on first contact. I mean, like even if Thomas Jefferson did hand me a driver's license and it said Thomas Jefferson, I mean, like I have no way of background checking him in the field when they show up, which is like other, like head of security somewhere else that deals with things. That's a major concern. But here I am in what feels like a birdcage at the moment. um so I'm watching this and I'm watching how they portray it and how they're trying to sell it that it's okay. But I'm thinking of my son and just how much has changed and how dangerously in the opposite direction, considering I couldn't even get a proper, like, suitor or a proper whatever. Like, I mean, the correct bloodline even. They forced me into some bad blood relationship. I mean, it's antigens and antibodies. Jason's blood, being the 1975 blood, is dangerous for me to carry the child. But yet it happened, and there was nobody who was explaining any of this. And I specifically told Jason that I did not, it wasn't for love. Let's just put it that way. That's how I explained it at all times. Whenever anybody asks if I'm divorced or whatever, I say I was married once, but it wasn't for love. Now I can say I married twice, but it wasn't for love. Having so much trauma in this field. So here we are. So going back to my three sons. So here's it partially the way through. They talk mostly about the clockmaker. That's what I'm focusing on.
Robbie, have you heard anything from Mike? No, ma'am. I just wondered if you had any old clocks around that you weren't using. Old clocks? Yeah. I have to get about a dozen of these together by 4. Oh, I'm sorry, Robbie. I can't talk about clocks right now. Come in. No news. It was Robbie's on some kind of trash drive.
Now, are they talking about just regular clocks, biological clocks? Are you talking about symmetrical clocks, which are the most rare? Are you talking about atypical clocks that pull off and like make some other form of constellation? Again, specificity does count in the rarity of the event.
No, I won't say anything. Well, you'll call me the minute you know. Fine. Bye. Robbie, did Mike seem, well, strange to you this morning? No more than usual. I suppose a clock like this costs a lot of money, huh? it's just a coffee. She'd seem perfectly normal. Well, do you suppose that if I took real good care of it that I could bar it for this afternoon? Oh, yes, Robbie, you can take it. Thanks, Mrs. Pearson.
Now, with all these security features that are in and around humanity, I'm just curious, is there a clock watch or a time force of any, like, I mean, I've seen a picture once of somebody sitting in front of a bunch of international timed clocks on the wall, like standard metric clocks. But I'm just curious, like when it comes to the biological clocks and the rarity and specificity, and if they're in danger or have been mistreated, where is the line of whatever to get to in order to protect themselves, their children, and the future? Now, in this part, he's collecting some of these clocks along his day, and then he sees the sundial. It's a sundial. Different metric. I believe they use a different word for it.
Would you pardon me just a minute? Just fix.
I don't see why a bunch of ladies would want to look at my old cowboy wristwatch. Hey, remember this? Emmy sent it to us one Christmas. Hey, there's no cuckoo. I traded to Freddie for that stuffed fish. Well, you go get it back and hurry up. You could use the fish, could you? I gotta have that cuckoo. I'll try, but I think Freddie's catty.
Might even wear his hat.
Now, this is CBS Morning's E30, where they mentioned this Super Bowl that they're preparing for.
Welcome back to CBS Mornings. It is finally here, Super Bowl weekend, the one time of year when it seems like every American is a football fan. Super Bowl 57 will be historic, the first one to have two black starting quarterbacks, Patrick Mahomes of the Kansas City Chiefs.
Now, what's interesting is on the My Three Sons episode, it's usually Mark, M-A-R-K, and then it's 7 in Roman numerals. And then it had something limited underneath it for Universal City or Universal Studios, whichever it is, which is a special kind of trademark. I'm not quite sure, again.
And the Philadelphia Eagles' Jalen Hurts, also the youngest pair of starting quarterbacks in Super Bowl history. Our Nate Burleson is in Glendale, Arizona, and he joins us now. Nate, it's pretty fair to say that this is a...
And again, I grew up in a Glen. Somebody put me there in the Glen off of Midland and off of St. Mark's. And then off of Northern Boulevard. So I'm not quite sure why or what they were signaling bringing it here in Glendale. But again, at Black Magic, it just seems like things are adding or stacking up in a really dangerous situations and consequences.
This is a highly anticipated showdown as well.
Yeah, you're right about that, Dana. Good morning. As football fans count down the...
And I noticed that he all of a sudden did his hair in braids at RAIDS. Just so brain, BRAIN, gets it square with REIGN at Reign.
Down the hours to Super Bowl 57. Anticipation is on the rise for the matchup between these two teams and these two quarterbacks. Football is a team sport. We get that. But this morning, we are taking a look at the impact these two quarterbacks are having on the game, both on and off the field. For superstar quarterbacks Patrick Mahomes
Takes it in for the touchdown.
and Jalen Hurts,
Hurts takes off and gashes him. Touchdown, Philly.
it's not just how they play on the field Sunday night, but what they represent.
When you talk about something so historic, it's a big deal because nobody.
And they've got State Farm in Glendale is what they're up to.
Because nobody's used to it.
The two quarterbacks square off Sunday at Super Bowl 57 as the first black quarterbacks to go head-to-head.
Now, he said nobody's used to it. Yeah, I'm not used to my national security being compromised and taught how to hurt me or where my weaknesses are in defense to the opposing team. But here we are. That's exactly what they're... I mean, there's no other logical explanation for switching from all-white quarterbacks and then teaching American and national strategy, defense strategy, and game and sport to something that is outside of the nation. So it's really confusing to me how this is allowed, because it puts my son and myself, Cosmic Mother, in direct harm's way.
A historic first in a league led by mostly black players.
Mahomes stepping up.
And now it was not always mostly black players. It was mostly white players for a long time, until I don't know when they started changing the field. But that has now led, playing forward, into strategy being taught. I mean, like, again, how does any level of security keep the children's national security safe if in sports signaling, they're signaling these massive disruptive changes, and it's across several sports? And now there's leisure, hotel, there's real estate development, there's a whole slew of new business. I mean, Walt Disney Company, I don't even recognize it from my youth till now. And what they're promoting on the, I mean, it's like the modeling agency broke.
The quarterbacks that came before me, Shaq Harris, Doug Williams, that laid the foundation for me to be in this position. If you think about Jackie Robinson and people that broke the color barrier in baseball, I wouldn't be standing.
They broke the color barrier. Now, at what point should the defense of the national security of the white children start to become alarmed and concerned? I'm just curious, because I don't really have anybody to ask that to in like a real world terminology. But I do have skin in the game in the foreseeable future. And I do have a very important astrological and biological event that happened that was documented and that I seem to keep being punished for. And I don't know how to rectify that in a way where I'm safe and I'm able to live a life that a human at my level should be living, having brought so much wealth and so much stability between the here and now and the future. Things that models in a timing mechanic can be built off of for the safety of the participants within it.
Here today if it wasn't for them.
It's been 35 years since Doug Williams won Super Bowl 22, the first black quarterback in NFL history to play in and win a Super Bowl. In the years since, only 6 other black quarterbacks have even played in a Super Bowl. In a league where black athletes make up majority of the NFL rosters, 70% of quarterbacks who played this season were white.
If you're of a certain age, you remember when the narrative was that blacks didn't have the mental capacity, not only not to play quarterback, but they couldn't play.
Can they define mental capacity? I'm just curious. Because that is an inside national security at a different kingdom level, which I don't think has to explain themselves at this level. And then there's that brain to braid conversion of the two words being the 8 in the B in the beginning, and then the word raid and the word rain. But rain is spelled two different ways in English, REIGN and RAIN, but it sounds like one spelling.
Play free safety. They couldn't play middle linebacker. They couldn't play offensive guard.
Yes, they couldn't play certain positions because it might be in direct teaching them that level of strategy might be put other people's children in direct harm's way.
Sports journalist Bill Roden has covered the NFL for nearly 4 decades.
We have seen a proliferation of black quarterbacks. So the question is, well, why is that? If you don't have black quarterbacks, if you don't have guys who could run it, who could throw it, you're going to lose.
He's got it. Touchdown. What?
I think we have 11 black starting quarterbacks today. They're some of the best leaders I've ever seen.
NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell says diversity makes the league better. Despite the disparity we still see today.
People talk about their talent and their ability to run, but they are incredible leaders.
Yeah, but here's the thing. This national and American conference is happening where I don't have a voice, but I have the clock of now and the future. So how are they some rogue internal feature almost overthrowing the security features we have of government, of the president, the executive, the legislative, and the judicial branch? They're somehow some rogue facility operating inside of the United States and inside of the North America. And there are changes going on, massive changes going on. And I don't see olive branch or any kind of family branch coming out into the field and letting the affected, like myself and my children, know about how to get out of harm's way and to get to safety. Where is that in the SEC, Security Exchange Commission? I'm just curious. Because there are laws and penalties. I'm just not quite sure their rule book or who to address.
They make the league better, and that's what we're so proud of.
I see it as an opportunity to honor everyone that has come before me and give encouragement to the future. You know what I'm saying? I know there are a lot of kids that have aspirations to play whatever position or do whatever it is, and a lot of people may tell them they can't do it, but they can.
And last night, Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes won his second most valuable player award in Arizona at the NFL Honors, making him the first black quarterback in NFL history to achieve such a feat.
It's incredible.
Guys.
Now, Nate, a lot of anticipation for this halftime show with Rihanna. You got to sit down with her. What was that like?
That's right. I had the privilege to sit down with Rihanna ahead of her Apple Music halftime show to talk about her long-awaited return to the stage after 7 years. Here's a sneak peek. This is the NFL's biggest stage. The world will be watching. What was it like when you received that call that you would be headlining the halftime show?
It was so scary because it was kind of unexpected to come back from like 0 to Super Bowl. Like, that's kind of nuts. Getting back.
I'm not going into this. I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of her music. I'm not a fan of any of the integrated features of whatever it is that they're up to at the moment. I've had enough. It has gone off course so dangerously. We're not talking about like Hot 97 in the 90s. Between the 90s and over the last 2.5 decades, it has just gone on some super explosive, like scary amount of changes for which some of the kids in the trenches don't even see it as faithfully. And at my age, when I hear them speak, they seem completely lost. Although I don't know if they're just accepting blood money and they're afraid to speak for loss of job, occupation, and future income potential. That's a possibility. I don't suffer from the same thing because they already took all of that away from me well before I even got into this day and age. While everybody was enjoying vacations and everything, I have not enjoyed the same level of lifestyle. Um, it's star 1978, star 8378. I'm going to pause this for a minute and go to the other NFL story about the two brothers. And one wears my numbers, but inverted. He wears them as an 8 first and then a 7. Again, I'm the House of August. I'm the clockmaker, star maker, as is with Alexander. So that is really important at a certain area of security. So here's the second story, the second layer in the NFL, like signaling story for this particular Super Bowl, which I haven't really followed them. Again, Brady's played before. I went to one Super Bowl and I didn't know any of the characters on the football field. And one of the people, it was one of these Tiafrio setups. So it was a Tiafrio 1975 internal setup. And we were not married, but at that point I had my 2012 son. And so I show up with my son and him, and we're at this football Super Bowl party in Ronkonkoma. And they're all dressed in like Giants jerseys because I think the Giants were playing. I think it was a Giants Super Bowl. Anyhow, so they were on like a couch and there was a big TV. I mean, like, again, it's not my thing. So whatever. So, and he's like, who do you think's handsome on the field? And I'm like, what? I was like, I don't know. They got helmets on. Like, how do you know? And he's like, oh, well, and I'm like, why? Who do you think is handsome on the field? At least, like, give me some direction so I'm not standing here, like, searching. And he's like, why did you look at the quarterback? And I'm like, quarterback? Now, which one is that? Like, how do I know? I was like, do you have a number? Because, again, couldn't see the name, whatever the screenshot was. So, again, I went on my way. I mean, I was busy with my son. I wasn't really with the whatever. I mean, I was respectful of everyone in the party, but I went into the dining room and again, I was just myself. I mean, like, these are all like staged events of I don't know who showing up doing I don't know what for I don't know whom. Like somewhere in the birdcage between, is it security or is it entrapment? It's really like right on the cusp because like they do need my expertise in clockmaking, star making, and the actual physical body, but they don't really like ever treat me well. So I'm like right on the fence of like how much like do I really care? Enough to say something when I'm concerned.
Two brothers from the same family will play against each other in the big game. We've got Jason Kelsey of the Philadelphia Eagles. He's a starting center. And his younger brother, Travis, of the Kansas City Chiefs. He's a star tight end there. And no matter how the game ends on Sunday, you can be sure their parents are definitely counting themselves winners in the game of life at this point. Chris Van Cleave talked to the Kelsey family earlier this week.
Yeah! Here we go!
Call it the Brother Bowl. The Eagles' Jason Kelsey.
Mahomes flips, pass, caught. Kelsey, touchdown!
And his younger brother Travis of the Kansas City Chiefs are about to make football history, squaring off against each other in a Super Bowl. Their proud parents, Ed and Donna.
Well, I started dreaming about that when Travis was drafted in 2013. You know, that's always, boy, would that be awesome.
We thought that that reality is just never going to happen. And then this year started out of nowhere, and it just took off on its own almost. It's just amazing.
Already, Donna is a Super Bowl star, easy to spot in her custom half Eagles, half Chiefs attire We even ran into her soaking in the sights and trying out her son Travis's interview podium.
Each have won a Super Bowl.
Yes.
This one will be a little bit different.
Yeah.
Because there are some bragging rights on the line.
Oh, yeah.
Travis, in many ways, since he's a little kid, trying to prove he's as good as his brother. And Jason, since he was a little kid, trying to make sure his brother knows he's not as good as he is, that kind of thing.
Jason doesn't stop to not tell Travis, well, I beat Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. So he has that one right now.
As for the brothers, here's Travis.
How do you feel about playing against your brother?
It's a special moment, man. It's a special moment. It's something that, obviously we'll remember for the rest of our lives. But I'm focused on making it a Chiefs win and not necessarily a win for the Kelsey on this side.
And Jason.
It never happened in the Super Bowl. We certainly didn't think it was going to happen growing up, and I think it'll be a big night. Hopefully, we'll be able to focus just on the game itself. The moment that game ends, I'm sure it's going to hit us.
The fans, the players, the league, everybody loves your boys.
We're very fortunate, dude. We're very proud of them.
Ed and Donna look forward to basically cheering the whole game. Since both sons play offense, one Kelsey will be on the field nearly all the time.
We're going to be happy for whatever team. I just hope it's high scoring and everybody's having a good time.
And the boys will tell you there's already a clear winner at Super Bowl 57.
Oh, yeah. You can't tell my mom anything right now. She's an absolute superstar.
She's killing it. It'll be an awesome night.
So
now here's New Year's Eve Bash live. I have it taped. I like Luke Bryant. He has this one song about Country Girl, Shake It For Me. Just makes me laugh. I sit on the couch and I just listen to the words and Grandpa's tractor. I'm like, right, yeah. Grandpa's no longer here. So as far as tracking goes, I will reference back to Grandpa's day and age of what his intentions were and then where we landed, because it doesn't look like, I know my grandfather wouldn't have wanted me treated this way, either side, foreign or domestic. And so anyhow, so I fast forwarded to an area where there is that Jason Kelsey player for the NFL looks a whole lot like I met them on the street. I wouldn't know first of all, until the Super Bowl, I didn't even know Jason Kelsey existed. But, and until New Year's Eve and having this gentleman on here singing, I didn't even know, and I still don't know what his name is. I'd have to fast forward more. But they look like in a lineup of who's who. Staring at their faces, I could tell. But just on a whim of some moving picture, I can't tell them apart.
Get some movement from that music note up there. Who's ready to see that music note drop? I'm ready. You guys are ready.
So again, I met a gentleman. We'll just do initials since I did JC28 and I have TL. We'll just put PB up there. For a local whatever that came to check on me or came to interact with me somehow, for whatever reason. And so we'll just go PB on that. Can't tell the difference between who could it have been. I don't know. It's an awful close between who showed up and whatever. And if there's other people out in the world that look the same, it's a possibility. So it's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole, Cattaruzza. It's Earth, solar system, Milky Way, universe, galaxy is broken. And it's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361. So anyway, going back to the clock, and the collection of these historic clocks. There's words and wisdom in there. I just don't know why there's been so much tragedy in my existence when all of this is already out there.